feeding.
Sprechen Sie Englisch? Hier. Los,
All are welcome.
Papers? Passport? Any other people on the boat?
We have lads to
Take
eat.
your dirty hands off!
Make him walk the plank.
Enough kerosene for just this sort of this on a burning ship. Themselves in water in the spied back of his head.
Bringing their guns to bear.
Outside of the powder room. So when he goes back.
Ready?
Poland, Belgium, and now we hope for our American brothers to boats sink ships indiscriminately to reach our shores. We'll bring with no defense against these lethal
chain to the U-boats. Of Hitler's Atlantic U-boat fleet ships. It's only a question of time before we find ourselves there.
He's currently in car.
Of course we're not, but we're desperate.
Now he works for me. The reason they find you unattractive.
Stuck on the surface. We want you to,
Aaron's already established there, running
Good for you.
and somewhat motivated. We won't find them again.
Taken him under my wing ever since. He can swim across the channel with his lasso. Grew up wrestling and turned up on our shores, ready to fight.
thought you might. That.
Because he's being
One of those coats.
The film recounts the first Special Forces unit established during World War II by British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, who is brought to life by Cary Elwes' exaggerated British film. The group embarks on a risky mission to destroy the Nazis using, as the title implies, ungentlemanly techniques. The first title card reads, based on a true story, which makes this a boats movie with real boats. The second claims that this is based on events from Winston Churchill's personal papers, which were released in 2016. The third takes us to the Atlantic Ocean in Nazi-controlled water territory in 1942, when the Nazi Navy prepares to board a tiny fishing vessel. There are two guys on board, Gus March Phillips, played by Cavill with some rip-roaring moustaches. The other participant is Anders Lassen, Alan Ritchson from the Reacher TV series, who is extremely ripped. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is centered on the true story of Operation Postmaster from World War II. Although carried out in collaboration with Prime Minister Winston Churchill, Operation Postmaster was a confidential, unauthorized mission by the UK whereby a group of soldiers with questionable credibility had been assigned with limiting Nazi U-boats in the Atlantic by assaulting and sinking vessels carrying supplies on the island of Fernando Po, now Bioko, which was controlled by neutral Spain at the time. In late 1941, during the peak of World War II, the United Kingdom is battling to stop Nazi Germany's aspirations to take over Europe, with London constantly being bombed by the Luftwaffe.
When do we go?
The fatter they are, the better they're dressed. I'm afraid, gentlemen, we're not going to have it.
2 more around the other side.
Can only break cover when things go.
Boots, gentlemen, and bon appetit.
It's over.
With the supplies and aid ships constantly being sunk by German submarines, Brigadier Colin Gubbins, with the hidden support of Prime Minister Winston Churchill, prepares to launch Operation Postmaster, an undercover Black Ops sabotage mission aimed at disrupting the Nazis' U-boat resupply operation on the Spanish-controlled island Fernando Po. Gubbins recruits Gus March Phillips to put together a ground crew to destroy the Italian supply ship Duchessa d'Aosta and 2 tugboats linked to her while SOE operatives Richard Herron and Marjorie Stewart leave by train. With a team consisting of Jeffrey Appleyard, Alex Pettifer, Anders Lassen, Alan Ritchson, Henry Hayes, Hero Finds Tiffin, and Freddie Alvarez, Henry Golding, Gus March Phillips, Henry Cavill is now in charge of the expedition. Undercover agents Herron, Babs Olasanmokan, who ran a bar that Nazi officers and soldiers frequented on the island, and Marjorie Stewart, Ungentlemanly, a Jewish woman entrusted with seducing Heinrich Löhr, Till Schweiger, the Nazi commander on the island, also provided support for them.
I do already have it.
Money and have lots of fun whilst doing it.
Bruder. Wer bist du? Wiedersehen.
A costume party for the...
Yes, but we don't want to go shorter.
And your nipples attached to a car battery.
Pretty for me. Freddy. Longer, but it should avoid any awkward conversation.
Gus and his allies, Freddie Alvarez, Graham Hayes, and Danish naval officer Anders Lassen, the only non-British subject to get the Victoria Cross, set off on a leisurely cruise to Fernando Po, using the neutral Swedish fishing boat Maid of Honor. They divert to a Nazi-controlled area of the Canary Islands for a rescue operation after learning that SOE saboteur Jeffrey Appleyard, who Gubbins had sent ahead on the idea that Gus would express interest in having him on the squad, had been apprehended by Gestapo agents. As mentioned, on landing early on Fernando Po, Marjorie, Heron, and the latter utilize the illegal gaming hall to gain support for Gus' squad, while Marjorie seduces Heinrich Löhr, the head SS leader. Gus orders his crew to sail past a British naval blockade of Nazi-occupied West Africa after discovering that the Duchess had plans to leave 3 days earlier than expected, even though they are aware that they would be caught if their illegal mission is detected. March Phillips and his men were to destroy the boats, and in order to empty the bay, Heron was to throw a big celebration for Nazi commanders and troops. The crew must come up with a new strategy when it is discovered that the Duchess, the main ship, has been strengthened with steel plates, making it essentially unsinkable. When other military authorities in the UK learn about the operation and order its termination, there is yet another issue. Despite the Italian attaché's misgivings, Löhr has had the Duchess's hull strengthened. Marjorie and Heron find out the night before the planned raid. Scarcely informed of this ahead of schedule, a mole in Gubbins' staff informs senior leadership about the plan, leading Gus and Appleyard to determine that the best course of action is to steal the ships and use them as a bartering chip. March Phillips and his crew continue the operation in spite of the fact that they must fundamentally rework their strategy and risk incurring the anger of the British military commanders who are urging them to step down. They want to seize the ships and turn them over to the British Navy in international seas rather than sinking them. The fact that the Nazis don't find them until after they leave the harbour is crucial to their new objective.
Ben, can't bet on yourself, Hayes.
Apple? A peculiar feeling that we've... I don't suppose.
An 8-foot-tall, huge portrait.
I'm very bored with these nuts.
So, what's your plan?
Making it the easiest.
We're out now. Ibolewa. Bossy. Show them the iron.
Full glare of the lights.
With explosives.
I'm sure I can cope. Just don't end up at one of his parties. As I had been known to love a pound note. However, if he's meant.
Kamalan.
My hair? You have a visitor.
Let's put this... A dark...
Scorpion's nest in my boots and I can't sleep.
Oh.
You're el capitán. Keep him here that long. Ehi Cesare, andava veloce come un'allodola.
I do Ikea spaghetti.
Thank you, Freddy.
It decays us into me. Our mission.
Not to blow the lights. Channel 5.
This is May, switching
Stalk, sir. Put him on open speaker.
Stop this immediately.
Have you seen the light of day again?
Is that clear?
I will Prime Minister on the hotline.
Come in, Zero.
In our midst, an Admiral Pound. I'm afraid we've lost all.
Explosives we're carrying.
Just reinforce.
There's no mistake, Hazy.
Get rid of the shuttle to the U-boats.
Why don't we steal them?
But you need a full crew to move a ship that size.
And hand everything over to the Navy. Or use them to blow the dump blows once we're outside the harbor.
Full of Nazi hearts.
Instead. A lot more blood and a lot more sweat. I'm up. He will bring his dinghy.
Shortly after March, when he and his crew have taken control of the ships and are preparing to sail them away, enemy forces suddenly arrive at the docks due to an explosion that occurs earlier than anticipated due to the haste of the plan changes. The raid succeeds and Marjorie shoots Lur in the head, even though Lur soon figures out when Marjorie's act starts to slip. Even when the gang delivers the boats to a British Navy outside of Lagos, they are taken into custody. Lur eventually found out that Stuart was a Jew, and just as he is going to torture her, he finds out about March Phillips's deeds and goes down to the docks with Stuart in tow. March Phillips and his men are able to escape the harbour by neutralising the troops on the docks by firing back at them. As he watches, Lur insists that they use their fleet of speedboats to pursue them, but the heroes had other ideas and detonated those as well. Lur becomes enraged and plans to turn on Stuart after killing a few of his subordinates, but Heron intervenes, kills Lur, and helps Stuart flee. They manage to exit the bay, meet up with March Phillips, and make it into international seas without incident. Indeed, their objective was successful, and they were able to do it with only a few minor bruises rather than losing any lives. That's not simply a cinematic notion, that information is true to history. March Phillips and his crew are all detained for their unlawful mission when they encounter the British Navy and hand over the Nazi ships to them. Their actions have not only seriously impaired the Nazi naval strength but also enabled the United States, who recently went into the war following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, to get involved in the European theater. As they wait to be court-martialed, they are spared and recruited by Churchill as part of his Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. The narrative then resumes a month later. March Phillips and his group are led to a solitary chamber within the penitentiary. Churchill, Rory Kinnear, meets them there and informs them that their mission has made it possible for American forces to cross the Atlantic safely and join the battle. Rather than facing consequences, he rejoices over them with a feast. He mentions that they work for him now, implying that Churchill has other tasks for them to complete. First, that will depend on how well the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare does at the box office, but there are some extra missions that the movie's characters and the military group they founded establish. The British military created the small-scale raiding force, often known as 62 Commando, in response to Postmaster's success. This unit would go on to carry out a few operations in 1942. Nevertheless, several of the individuals in the film were captured or killed as a result of these operations, which were not as successful. There is also information in writings about other troops with comparable training that served in the war, so maybe a new cast of people may be included under the same auspices that Churchill creates at the conclusion of the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. A montage of facts revealing the post-operation behaviors of several protagonists is presented before to the final credits. Gus became a war hero and led multiple such raids during the conflict before marrying Marjorie at the start of her acting career. Appleyard received many commendations for his participation in the expedition, much to the King's delight. Hayes became a highly skilled spy who gained notoriety for withstanding a year of Nazi torture without breaking. Lassen continued to participate in attacks outside the group until his death in 1945. Ian Fleming, who was at this point in Gubbins' inner circle, would use Operation Postmaster as a template for his James Bond novels.
No need.
Is in their condemnation. Men who disobeyed a direct order found their crossing, for which I know President Roosevelt their own ministry of